Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to welcome you on our new webinar on Instagram marketing strategy, how to leverage content, engagement, and influences to drive success with our super guest speaker today, Neal Schaffer. Hooray!
Hey, everybody.
Neal is a recognized leader in helping businesses maximize your social, also university educator, social media agency owner, author, and social media strategy consultant. So thank you, Neal, for being here with us today.
Thank you for the invite. It's going to be awesome.
Okay, so guys, please give a huge welcome to Neal in comments. By the way, how is the sound? How is the picture? Is everything all right?
Let us know, everybody. Right there in the chat on the right-hand side.
Yeah, sounds good.
Good to hear.
Okay, so thank you everybody for registering and coming here. So while people are still joining our live meeting today, let me tell you a few words about today's presentation. So the first thing that I want you to know is that the webinar will be recorded, and I'm going to send you a link to watch it in a follow-up email. So don't worry if you miss something or if the connection is bad, you will have a chance to rewatch it. The second thing, at the end of the Neal's presentation, there will be a Q&A session where Neal is going to answer all of your burning questions connected to Instagram marketing, Instagram strategy, and etc. So please, right now, look at your screens and find a Q&A tab that is located to the right from chat tab, and post all of the questions for Neal here. But before you post your questions, please make sure that the question has not been posted yet. If it has, you can simply upvote it. I will be moderating the chat and Q&A discussion today, so I'll be reading the most upvoted questions for Neal first. So thank you in advance. As I've just said, I will be moderating chat today, and so I also will try to help you in case I'm able to. So I think it's time now to give the floor to you, Neal. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much, Anna. And greetings again, everybody. We have a lot of content to cover. Those of you that know me know that I usually sort of over-deliver. So I want to get to the content really quickly, but I also want to understand better who actually is attending and how much are you using Instagram presently. So we have a few poll questions here, and I'm going to start with this poll. If you go to the poll tab, I'd like you to respond to this first question. And I'm going to share these. I'm not sure if you can see all the results, but I'm going to share them with you. How long have you been on Instagram? And I'm just going to, there's 3 really quick poll questions. I think it's going to be really interesting, not just for me and help me present, but also for everybody in the room. So just looking at the general numbers here, I see that half of you are what I would consider veterans. If you've been on Instagram for 2 years, you are definitely a veteran. And right now, the number is 55% of you have been on Instagram for 2 years. The other 55 have not been on 2 years. And, you know, with every year, Instagram completely changes. So, in fact, 16% of you have been on less than 3 months. So for those of you who have been in 2 years, you're thinking, why hasn't everybody been on Instagram? But Instagram is still picking up new users and new businesses on a daily basis. So, okay, awesome. I'm going to close this poll, and then we're going to go to a new poll. Got 2 more polls for you, as I said. And this deals with how many followers does your account have on Instagram? Now, the interesting thing about this question is that, you know, every social network is a little bit different. With Instagram, the 10,000 number is the critical number. If you are a business account or one of the new creator accounts, once you hit 10,000 followers over time, what happens is they give you the ability to add a link to your Instagram story, which can generate precious website traffic. It's one of the benefits. Also, once you hit 10,000 followers, you might get invited and it'll show up as a notification in your feed to become eligible for an Instagram creator account if you do not have a business account, if you're a personal brand. So right now I see only 9% of you have over 10,000, an overwhelming majority, well, not an overwhelming, sorry, 44% of you have 500 or less. And actually, I think for those people, this webinar is going to help you get started really growing that following in a really, really good way. So I'm going to close this poll. And one more poll, and then we'll get on to the content. So what is your single biggest challenge? Now, my challenge, and as you respond to this, I'll tell you my challenge. My challenge is I was talking with Anna, and Combin have been creating Instagram tools for many, many years, and they also hear from their customers what their challenges are. And I knew coming into this, it was full of landmines because the challenges with Instagram, as I'm going to show you, is really like no other social network. It requires an entirely new way of thinking and strategy. And therefore, the challenges that a lot of you have are going to be very, very different. And I'm going to try to respond to all these in different ways. We have the themes of content, engagement, and influence, and I'm going to be weaving into my presentation. But right now, the number one, and I'm going to make note of these as well. In fact, I'm going to take a little screenshot so I don't forget them. Increasing engagement from community. Awesome. That actually is what 1/3 of you say is your problem, or biggest challenge, I should say. The other third is increasing followers. The third one is, in general, just trying to figure out how best to use Instagram. Content is number 4, or deciding what content to post. I actually thought that was going to be higher. Then comes influencers, then others. So I'm going to close these polls. I don't know if you're going to be able to see them as I go through the remainder of the presentation, but let us now go to, hopefully this is going to work, my entire screen. All right, so hopefully now you see my entire screen, and I'm going to go now into my presentation. Hey, Anna, just a quick quality check. Does everybody see can you see my screen? Hey, Anna, are you there? Okay, I am going to go out here. If you were able to see my screen, just let me know in the chat here real quick, and then I'll go back. And I'm going to scroll down here. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. All right, so let's keep moving into the presentation. So the cover photo here really indicates that Instagram obviously is a very, very different network, and I'm going to get into why I chose that image a little bit later. Just a little bit of introduction about me for those of you that don't know me. I am a social media speaker, consultant, author. One of the reasons that I'm really excited about this webinar is I've been doing a lot of work. I'd say Instagram marketing has been my main focus of work and research over the past 2 years as I write The Age of Influence, this book on influencer marketing, which is coming out next year. I teach social. I have my own agency. I also am an influencer, both working with brands as well as helping brands work with influencers. So this is a little bit about me. I'll have my contact information at the end, and I'll also be following up with you. So my goal for the next 45 minutes, leaving you time to ask questions, because I know we're going to get a lot, because we have a lot of people registered for this. And then 4 things, right? Number 1, I believe you need an entirely different skill set to be successful on Instagram, right? You might have been successful on Twitter, maybe on Facebook, maybe on Pinterest. Every network requires different things to be successful, but obviously Instagram is going to require completely different things, as I'll go through later. And with that in mind, you need a new mindset about what content you should be posting on Instagram. And it's really fueled by the competition, and I'll get into that as well. Number 3, the many ways to generate engagement. So for those of you that were trying to build more engagement, and for those of you that are trying to build more following, I sort of see these things going, hand in hand. So we're going to get into that. And then at the end, I know that influencers is not for everybody. Even if you're a personal brand, though, there is something to be said to be working and collaborating with others, and the mindset that comes with that I'm going to go through at the end as well. So those are my goals. I'm going to be taking, 1 or 2 breaks just to see if there's any burning questions, but I'm going to keep going. So first of all, you all know the importance of Instagram. The problem is a lot of companies still have their social media stuck in the past. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, this is the past, right? The now is what you see on the right. And obviously the ones that we see great out there are mobile only. So I've gotten questions, how best can I use Instagram from the computer? Well, you need to experience Instagram like a user would, right? And it is a mobile experience. So right there, you need to have a different mindset that says, I'm going to use mobile as much as possible to manage a primarily, or I should say specifically, mobile-only platform. So we want to make sure we're not stuck in time, and this is why we need to do a reset on how we do things. We know Instagram is the 2nd largest social network. Now, YouTube is above it. I don't really consider YouTube a social network like a Facebook or an Instagram. And Instagram is just light years ahead. In terms of active users, you can add Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest together, and they would be equivalent to Instagram's active users. And guess what? Instagram's active users are only half less than half of Facebook. This is why you're still going to see more and more people coming on. And it's just the absolute no-brainer that this should be, in terms of growing networks, not just because it's the second, but it also continues to be the highest paced growing network where you should be investing more time. So why aren't more companies there? Fortune 500 companies, these are global brands, I believe, primarily with headquarters in the United States. And no, the 2019 figure has not come out yet. But as you see, they're still playing catch up. Even last year, only 2/3 of companies, of large brands, had a presence on Instagram. Why? Why are they missing out? Well, that's the opportunity for you. If we were to look at the different types of social networks that exist, if you're a business, Facebook and LinkedIn are pretty much pay to play today. If you're a business on these user account based social networks on the right, and if you're on if you've been on Twitter, if you've been on Pinterest, it's the same thing with Instagram. Whether you're a person or a business, you can engage with others freely. You can follow others. You can comment on others people's posts. You can act like a person. And these are the networks where organically you can do a lot more if you do not want to advertise. So you need to use that to your advantage of the many different ways you can engage as a person. And that's really going to set you up for success. And I'm going to go through all those different engagement things at the end. Now, one thing that's kept people away from Instagram is a lot of reasons why people use social networks if you're a business is to get more traffic back to your website. So I have seen traffic from Instagram back to nealschaffer.com is still small. But if I look at it as a percentage of traffic, in other words, if I get 100 viewers from Facebook in March, how many am I getting from Instagram? That number was 7.7, but you'll see over the last 3 months that has grown. It's almost quadrupled. Okay, so it is coming. Instagram users are getting more used to clicking on posts in bios. They're getting more used to swiping up on Instagram stories. One thing that helped me, I believe it was the May timeframe where I got access to the creator account because I never had a business account, where I could use the swipe up feature in Instagram stories. So it is a new culture that people are very much getting used to, just like they're going to get used to shoppable posts in Instagram as well over time. So it's going to take time for a culture shift, but it is happening. And there are ways of getting traffic from Instagram. And this has been a pleasant surprise to me. So that's why Instagram is so important. And that one reason why a lot of businesses did not do as much, which is they wanted to generate website traffic, we're quickly seeing that problem being solved in various ways. So Instagram, though, is hard to compare to these other networks because we know Instagram is the most engaging, right? We know that even though the audience size is half of Facebook, the user engagement blows it away, even though the activity volume is small. And I'm going to get back to why this is the case, but it really comes down to supply demand. And you're going to hear me talk about that in a later slide. I want you to remember that, though. The smaller audience, smaller activity volume, yet huge user engagement. Another thing, Instagram is not for everybody. If you're targeting people above 40, stick to Facebook, right? Obviously, Instagram is more B2C oriented, but we are seeing more B2B businesses utilize it. LinkedIn is going to be most important for B2B, but if you were going to pick a second network between Twitter and Instagram, Instagram is getting closer to becoming as important as Twitter, I believe. If you think about B2B, sell to people within companies, it's about those people relationships, right? So nearly 70% of users are under 35. What a lot of brands in the United States, where I live, say is that Instagram is really their way of connecting with millennials. Millennials obviously comprise an overwhelming majority of the Instagram user, and they are primarily only on Instagram. You're not going to find them on other social networks. For me, writing a book on influencer marketing, an overwhelming majority of influencer marketing spend is on Instagram, and that is now in the billions of dollars for many reasons that I'm going to go through. So Instagram's lack of supply is your chance. These are three brands that I bring up a lot when I talk about Instagram and visual social. Look at the number of pins they have. I mean, Target has 178 million pins, right? They have 73,000 tweets, but they only have 1,500 Instagram posts. This is the supply and demand. This is why you're going to get more engagement, because there's lots of users, but not a lot of people are posting a lot of photos. And that's the opportunity. In fact, we already have a lot of data that says the more you post, the better. Now, there's a lot of reasons why this could be, right? But really, the goal that all of you should have is being able to publish once on a daily basis. In fact, I would say if you could post one photo and one story, or one photo, video, one story on a daily basis, that is the ideal. That is very, very difficult to do when dealing with Instagram content. Even I have not been able to achieve that over a longer period. But we have to think in Instagram shoes, right? We need more content. If people publish on a daily basis, we're going to give them a little bit more love in the algorithm, probably. This hasn't been proven, but this has really become a best practice. And I'm not talking about publishing 10 times in one day. It's not about flooding the algorithm. It's about consistency on a daily basis. And those that post, more than one day, there's just very few of them out there. So, 5%, become the 5%. And that is going to be one way that you're going to get more engagement, because the algorithm is going to say, this is not someone that just comes on once a month or once a week. This is someone that's invested in Instagram, that's creating great content, that's going to keep more people coming back to Instagram. There's other reasons why you're going to get more engagement and a greater following if you do this. But this is one thing that you should definitely consider doing if you're not doing it. Now, the challenge, and in fact, let me take a step back here. We're 1/4 of the way through. Anna, I don't know if you can hear me. You might have your mic turned off, but the slides are moving fast. Okay. I'm going to get to the Q&A at the end. Yes. These slides are talking points. So if you listen to me speak, I think it'll make a lot more sense. Yes, it is fast paced. There's a lot of content to get through. And that is why those slides are moving fast. This is not a 10-slide presentation. It is a...
By the way, I'm here, Neal. I
yes,
hear you.
okay. Thank you, Anna. Chroma's working great. Thank you. Hey, Gabe, I see we have some great comments there. Yeah, I'm a fast talker. There's a lot of content, but I think if you bear with me and you take notes at the end, it's all going to make sense, and you're going to have a really, really solid roadmap. Anna, are there any burning questions, or should I keep going?
I think you should keep going.
All right, let's do it. So here's the thing, though. Okay, we need to think visually. This is old news, right? Instagram, Snapchat, Pinterest. This is where the viewers are going, and it's all going to visuals. In fact, even on Facebook or on LinkedIn, it's all going to visuals. Every company needs to have a visual way to represent their business. And I'm not talking about product shots, right? I'm not talking about things that you would use as ads. A true visual representation of your brand that an Instagrammer would want to engage with. And I've been on Instagram, I think 6 years now. And I have seen this transformation where at the beginning, you have a lot of social media people who come over, they start to just post random photos. And then maybe at some point they go, oh, quote images do really well because they did well on Facebook, or maybe they did well on Twitter, and they start flooding it with those. And then we see content creators saying, you know what? These people are missing out on the true potential of Instagram. Instagram is about connecting with people visually. So we've seen over the years that those that have been really successful, the emergence of influencers of a lot of different scales, have done so because they've shown themselves products, experiences, lifestyles that are authentically real, or they've been able to portray them as looking authentically real. And now those photos are more and more of a very, very high professional quality. I mention this because this is your competition, right? You can say, well, they're just influencers or they're photographers. That might be, but on Facebook, you had to compete with, as a business, and I know some of you might be on here for your personal brand. I'm going to try to cover both. On Facebook, you have to compete with wedding announcements and baby pictures. Well, on Instagram, you have to compete with a lot of really, really slick photography, right? So that is what you need to be prepared for. I also say here that they have a targeted magazine approach. I'm going to talk about that magazine approach because it's really critical. But, you need to have a visual face. This is an example of a B2B company, a shipping company that, was trying to figure out what their visual face was going to be. And I know if you've been on my webinars before, you may have seen these images, but it's about a visual way of representing your brand that's more of a lifestyle. It is connected with people, with places, with things. Every one of these have different elements in it that connect it with location, people, or things. In this case, it might be animals. This is the beginning Okay, this is a Facebook photo grid, not an Instagram photo grid, but you begin to have a grid approach look at your visual branding. And on the left there, you would have what I call content categories or content buckets that are going to help you organize your photography or your graphics and help you become better and better at Instagram. So this is the competition, right? And big brands put a lot of thought into this, into their visual strategy. Sephora, you don't see, stock photos of makeup. These are all extremely creative and interesting makeup displays. They also show faces. Obviously, they're a cosmetic brand, and they do a lot of reposts. Reposts are some of if you want to engage with someone, ask them for permission to repost their photo. Boom, right? Easiest way to engage with someone and to get on their radar. So this is one brand. Every brand is different. And this is an important one. I bring up Nordstrom, right? This is all female fashion. Now, Nordstrom is a high-end American department store. If you were to go into a Nordstrom, they have anything and everything a department store would have. They have men's fashion, right? They have home furnishings. They have cosmetics, but they focus on female fashion because they know that is what their audience is interested in. So this is where we begin to see you don't have to put anything and everything about your business up on Instagram. You want to find those key things that people are interested in. And I'm going to give you the system to help you do that. But once again, Nordstrom, they do not show faces, right? They cut off the head. This is no head. They have a lot of natural backgrounds or textured backgrounds, right? We have brick, we have grass, we have wood, we have palm trees. So this is things, I'm just throwing these out there as ideas for you to be thinking about. How are you going to best, especially if you are a brand with product, how are you best going to visually show those? And at the end of the day, brands cannot compete with amateurs. Even the mighty Disneyland said, you know what? We're not going to post our own content. We're going to post 100% user-generated content on our Instagram feed. There are other companies that do this as well. This, I believe, is a great strategy. The problem is, if you're a known brand like Disneyland, people take tons of photos. You have a lot of photos to cull from. If not, right, if you're not a known brand, how do you generate user-generated content for your product? And I'm going to go through that as well, because that's really what you need to do. So let's now start at the Instagram infrastructure. I talked about this targeted magazine approach, okay? LinkedIn, right? If you have a LinkedIn profile, it's an inbound marketing tool. You're painting your future. These are the people I want to connect to, okay? The Instagram approach, your branding is your visual, you do have some text there, but it's going to come down to a visual profile, and it's like a magazine. People are following influencers and they're following brands they know, obviously, but they're following influencers because they post about something that they have an interest in, and it's visual. So the closest analogy, and maybe you've heard this analogy before, but I really think it's the best one, is a magazine, okay? I'm going to subscribe to this magazine because I'm interested in this based on the profile, highlights, and grid. And I'm going to get into those elements. And therefore, there's an expectation that every time I post, people are going to be wanting me to visually talk about those things. So your bio now is introducing your magazine. And I just put a few people up here, right? You want to be very clear as to what you're talking about. Now, some of the most successful pages or profiles on Instagram are people that don't even have their own content. They just use other people's content. Now, I don't know for sure about Wedding Digest Ninja, 2.7 million followers, but they showcase weddings happening around the world. Feel free to submit. I'm sure they do collaborations. I mean, this is probably its own business without a doubt. It's very, very clear as to what they do. So, we talk about niches. As a business, you want to have a niche. As a personal brand, you want to have a niche. You need to now be able to visually describe what that niche is and stick to it, right? It's like on Twitter, at one point, we were talking about what we had for breakfast. We don't do that anymore, right? And the same is with Instagram. You may feel like posing a selfie once in a while, but people that are subscribing to your magazine are expecting certain content. Anna Brandt is a local photographer here in Orange County, California. Interesting thing is, and she has a few 100,000 followers. Interesting thing is, she originally was just a baby photographer, and she has tremendous, excellent baby photos. But over time now, she's created her own how-to site on how to create images for Instagram. I think it's Anna Brandt Education. She now positions herself as a California photographer who travels the world, not just a baby photographer. So now she's branching out from one content bucket or one magazine column of just baby photos to doing other things about California and about her travels. Andrew Smith is one of my favorites. Andrew Smith is a social media marketer like myself. And if you go back in Andrew Smith's post from a few years ago, you may find a selfie that we posted in front of a Baltimore bar or pub. But over time, Andrew realized that he loves food and he eats out a lot. And he posts a lot about food to the point where right now his Instagram feed has blown up because he focuses on the food. Food, drinks, Baltimore, you can't live life on an empty stomach. If you are a foodie, you will want to follow Andrew Smith. He's even gone so far as to actually put food for his profile pic. Now, how is he monetizing this is another story. I think this is more of a personal branding, but I'm sure he gets a lot of free dinner invites in Baltimore, maybe outside of Baltimore these days. So going over to my own, I am a consultant, but I also post a lot about Japan where I go quarterly for business and I speak Japanese, travel, food. These are extra magazine columns that help bring people into building a connection with me. And I post in Japanese. And I have a link here that I don't see, I don't see people pointing out, a link for free resources. I'm going to talk about this linked in bio and about these highlights separately. But that is what is going to paint the picture as to who you are and what you post, right? Now you have the ability to do a profile link. I'm a big fan, and there's a few of them out there, of link in bio. Link in bio is a service offered by the app called Later. It requires you, I believe, to have a paid subscription, but it gives you the ability, if someone was to press this link right here, it gives you the ability to decide which post you want to link with which website. So for this webinar, maybe some of you clicked on this photo. Here's a blog post. Here is a free social media marketing fundamentals course I did with my friends over at SEMrush. Here's a link to a YouTube video, right? So it's one way that you generate website traffic if you do not have a way of, linkable products, which a lot of businesses don't have with a business account. This is a great way of actually generating traffic. And whenever I post it, it's like, hey, check out the link in my profile bio for details. More and more people are getting used to seeing this and doing it. And this is what's helping generate more traffic. We also have the highlights, okay? Highlights are part of the promise. It's part of the magazine. People are going to check this out. They're going to go, I wonder what highlights they have. Then they're going to check out your grid. So the highlights really become your content categories. And for those of you that know me and read Maximize Your Social, they become your content buckets. These are the things I talk about. So wedding travel, on the go, brand building, business services. For Anna Brandt, workshops, baby, fun things. For myself, events, Japan, speaking, biz travel. For my friend Andrew Smith, food and drinks, right? But these become very clear. And this is a way of actually leveraging your stories, because the other way you generate website traffic is if you have 10,000 followers in a business or creator account through stories, right? So now I can, permanently have them on my profile, and it gives people a way to engage. Now, the engagement becomes very important when we talk about the algorithm and how to build more engagement. But for right now, you need to think of the highlights in terms of your branding and how to organize your content into different magazine columns. Now, the challenge for brands is that social media is made for people, not businesses, right? And your organic social media, if you're not on Instagram, looks like this, right? Especially on Facebook or a LinkedIn company page. But even on Instagram, if you don't do it right, you're not going to get the right engagement. And I'm going to say, stop blaming the algorithm, right? It comes down to your content, and it comes down to the different ways of building engagement and of engaging with others that I'm going to talk about. But at the end of the day, right, people tell stories that brands cannot. I love using this example. This is Xiamen Air, a Chinese airline that worked with some influencers when they were launching their new 787 nonstop service from a few North American cities to Xiamen, China. And from Xiamen, you can travel to Bali or different places in Asia. Nobody that worked at Xiamen Air would have been able to put together this photo shoot, right? This is something that content creators are on Instagram are able to do. This is something that influencers are able to do. This is your competition. This is the level that you need to be able to build yourself up to. And getting there is about creating audience-centric content. This is something that Joe Pulizzi said a while ago, that most content on social media that companies publish is all about them. It's not about you. The magazine has ads every few pages. The radio station has ads every few songs, but 90% of it should be about content that your targeted audience is going to be interested in, that's going to help them build affinity with you, build a relationship, so that when you do post those ads, more and more people are going to see them and they're already ready to click on them. That is the mindset you need to have, and not just for Instagram, but for everywhere. So how do you create audience-centric content? If you're able to do it and you have those skills, awesome. If you're already getting awesome engagement, awesome. I know a lot of you are not from that poll question. Number one is leverage user-generated content, right? So if people are already talking about your brand, or they're talking about similar things, that you can actually repost their content, that is one thing. Now, if you're selling a product or service, I do not think you should have a 100% photos of content that's not based around your product. So if you have a lot of people using your product, 100% of that is awesome. If not, and you're going to be reposting things that are related to your product, right? Like you sell surfboards and you don't have a lot of people taking photos with your surfboard, but you're going to post surfing photos, whatever. That's great. But at some point you also want to have people with your own product, right? So you need to seed the market with your product is a point I'm going to make a little bit later. You work with influencers, or you hire an influencer photographer creative. The third point is something I think a lot of people and businesses don't think about, but it is a really, really easy and cheap thing to do. Okay. We know that influencers create amazing audience-centric content. This is from a campaign for a kombucha brand. Once again, you cannot beat the creativity of all these people. And think, if you were Healthy Kombucha and you had these people posting these photos that you were reusing on your own profile, your profile is going to rocket. The content's going to be extremely engaging, and it doesn't look like an ad, most importantly, right? They're all telling stories. So work with someone experienced in creating audience-centric content. If you're in the United States, we have Craigslist, okay? You have TripAdvisor. You have all these different classified ad sites. Do a search for photo shoot. Do a search for Instagram photo shoot. And I think you're going to be really surprised. This is someone, $65 a half an hour, $120 a full hour is going to give you, a location, is going to let you, change into clothes. Now, this is someone, if you want to model bathing suits, or if you manufacture bathing suits, and you want to, bring along a friend that's going to model, this is going to create tens, if not hundreds of photos that you're going to be able to use for a year through one photo shoot. And yes, I've also done photo shoots. This is a photo shoot that I did. This is more about a personal brand that I did in Tokyo. The exact same thing. I believe it was Craigslist. There were a number of people I contacted. So if you need photos for your personal brand or for your business, this is a really, really easy way to get started doing it. And it's something, like I said, I don't think a lot of companies think about. They go to agencies. They try to hire photographers. Go on the ads on all these sites. Look for starving photographers, students, people that are creating a career. It can be very, very cost efficient, and you can get a lot of content created in a very little time for very little money. All right. So we still have a lot of content to go through. I'm just going to do a quick break here to see what sort of the photo shoot is awesome. Hey, thanks, Anna. I really think it is something, great insights. I appreciate that. All right. You know what? Since you're liking the content, I'm just going to keep going. We still got a lot to go through, but we're going to get there. So this is the thing. Your grid is your visual branding. And it's a really, really interesting analogy with LinkedIn, because everything you do on LinkedIn, right, brings people back to your profile. And that's why it has to be solid. Everything you do on Instagram, right, you engage with others, you publish using hashtags, and you hope that people find those hashtags in hashtag searches and come back to you. You might tag brands or people in your posts, right? And maybe other people see those photos and come back to you. It's going to come down to the profile visit. In your bio, those highlights in your grid are going to determine if they convert to followers or not. And most people, unless it's really relevant to them, are not going to follow you. People have gotten very, very specific about who they follow on Instagram, unlike the earlier days where people were a lot open just because of the amount of bots and fake followers and people that are not doing Instagram in an authentic way, right? And I think you know what I'm talking about. So what is the grid? Okay, I am, in all honesty, this is still a work in progress for me. But at the end of the day, we want to almost plan out, just like with a LinkedIn profile, we're sort of mapping out what our future is through inbound marketing, through keywords. We're doing it visually, and we're planning out what is it that we want our visual branding to look like. We want to have an attractive grid. Attractive grids will help you convert a lot more people when they get to your profile, right? We have the checkerboard, right? if you do quote images or text overlays. You can do, every other one. You do that with a visual. We have the color splash. If you're really good at photography, you can make everything black and white and then just have one or two colors stick out. We have only doing pastel colors. We have color blocks. There are grids where you only use one filter the same time, or maybe you have one element like a palm tree in every photo. Plan is actually a very, very interesting app that helps you. And there's a number of these apps. Later is another app that help you actually pre-plan out your photos. And you can do this, you can do this on your own as well. You don't need an app to do it. But if you're interested, check out this URL, planthat.com, Instagram feed themes, where they go through, I think, 24 different grid ideas. But like I said, this is what the competition's doing. You need to figure out a grid theme that works for you and try to stick to it. What this means, because this grid mindset is really unique, right? People might not scroll past your first 9 images. That's what's going to count. It's 100% visual aesthetic. There's no captions. It's purely visual. The patterns or themes can be recognized, as I'm showing you here, right? It requires discipline. You may feel the need, like you're in the moment, you see something great, you take a photo. I really need to post this. My fans are going to like it. What is it going to look like in the grid? It doesn't have to be real time. It requires content strategy. So posting in the moment and without grid consideration might hurt your visual branding. Stick to your magazine theme. And the magazine theme is a combination of the grid, and each one of these things in a grid is aligned with a certain magazine column or content bucket or category of content. So let's get into the technicalities of content. This is what a Facebook algorithm looks like. And I think we can say the same thing about, every type of social network algorithm. This is actually a preview of my book of a graphic that I had made. But the chance your post is seen by your fans, right? How engaged are you with the account? How are others engaging with the post? How have others engaged with this account's post in the past? Do users engage with this type of post? How new is the post? This is sort of the traditional way of looking at an algorithm. But really, Instagram's going to be a little bit different. It has some of these elements. But at the end of the day, for those of you that remember what the television looked like, no joke intended, the television drew people in. Everybody stayed around the television, and people would sit through commercials because the content was awesome. Okay. Every social network is trying to become the television. They want you to stay on their platform as long as possible. And those profiles that keep people on their profiles and keep engagements with those profiles longer are going to get better presence in the Instagram algorithm, getting more impressions and then getting more engagements. How do you build engagement through content? This is why that picture of how the algorithm works on Facebook, it does not 100% apply to Instagram. Okay, with a photo, you have a photo, right? You obviously have a way of tagging a location to a photo. You can tag other things in that photo that might appear in other profiles. You have videos. We can do the same thing with videos. We have long and short captions. Up until recently, people were like, keep your captions short and sweet. Now the thought process is, if it's a long caption, it's going to keep people on my profile longer. And therefore, Instagram is going to see that I have higher quality content. Sort of like having a long blog post versus a short blog post. Hashtags, how many and where, right? A lot of considerations. I'm going to cover that separately. Stories. And within stories, the ability to tag, to have hashtags, to do location. We then have Instagram Live, which is part of Stories. And in Stories, we have all sorts of functionality that you should play with if you haven't. We have the ability to do polls, to ask questions, to do quizzes. We have Instagram TV, which I'm not going to talk about. I don't think everyone's ready for that, but obviously if you are, go do it. And then you have direct messages in Instagram. Every single one of these, the more that people see these and engage with these, the greater your engagement is going to be with those people. And therefore, Instagram is going to see that people that engage with you engage for a longer amount of time, and it's going to help you. So there's many, many different ways. And should you be doing all of these? Ideally, yes, especially if you're looking to build more engagement. I would experiment with which one of these work better than others. But these are the content buckets, right? They have to fit into your highlights. Now, only 5 highlights show. You can have more highlights, and this is a preview of when I'm ready. I'm going to have 12 different categories, but over time, I'm going to shed these down. Japan, travel, food, sunset, sports, local moco or local information is on top. On the bottom, brands I love, freebies, events, speaking, blog, podcast. You'll notice that a lot of people doing personal brands want to put their blog and podcast front and center. I think these come at the end. You want to attract people to your magazine through these common things that people enjoy being on Instagram for, right? And you need to find what works best for your business. So hashtags, how many to use? This information is a little bit dated, but I think we basically now have two different ways of thinking about hashtags. You don't want to spam your followers. If you're truly influential, you only need to use a few hashtags, and that's what Instagram prefers, is what one type of expert says. The other expert says use the maximum 30. Now, what I've found is the more you use, the more, in general, the more impressions you get, the more engagement you get, right? And when I look at the top posts in a lot of Instagram searches, I see that they're using a lot of hashtags. So I'm going to keep using a lot of hashtags. If I have 1 million followers and the hashtags don't matter, sure, I think it's going to look a lot better with personal branding if you only use a few. But if not, use dots or equal signs or whatever to push the comments down, push the hashtags down. Do you post them at the bottom of your post? Do you post them in a comment immediately following your post? The verdict's out on that. I would try both. I've seen pretty equal results in all honesty. Do whatever you think is best. So you need to have a hashtag strategy. You need to spend a little bit of time. What are the hashtags being used by top posts, by influencers, by competitors? What are hashtags that are relevant to your business, lead people to your business? And at the end of the day, you're going to take these hashtags, and whenever you post, you're going to use a variety of hashtag volumes, right? Especially if you're just getting started, you're not going to use a lot of hashtags where you're competing with over 1 million posts for, right? You're going to have a lot of medium-sized, if not low-sized, if not niche ones related to post. There's no given ratio here, and even this under 10K, 10K to 100K, it depends on the subject matter. But you want to experiment with different, volumes, because the lower the volume, the less competition, the more that you're going to appear. And you want to start appearing more and more in the top 9 in those top hashtag searches, even if it is a very, very niche hashtag. You got to start somewhere. So the other thing is, post versus stories. Now, this is what I would used to say. If you want something that's permanent and searchable, you want to post. If you want something that increases engagement, you want a story. But the ability to have a swipe up on stories and the ability for you to archive your stories in the highlights means that Instagram stories are more than just about engagement. It is a social network entirely on its own. And if you have a business account or your creator account, you're able to get more data. But look at the number of people that engage with your stories by looking at them and engage with your post. It's almost like Instagram has 2 separate social networks. And that's why in an ideal world, you're posting daily on each one of these. But if not, you definitely want to experiment with stories. People know it's 24 hours, but you want to have good content, right? One easy rule may be static photos on posts and videos or more interactive things on stories. That's for you to decide. But you need to if you're just doing posts, you're missing out on an entirely different social network on Instagram. And here's what you're going to do, right? This is the Deming Circle, Plan, Do, Check, Act, PDCA. That's the name of my agency, is PDCA Social. You want to analyze what are the highlight categories, what are the content buckets that do well, what are the ones that don't do well. And from there, you're going to optimize, like Nordstrom did, saying, we're just going to do female fashion. You're just going to focus, instead of me focusing on 12, I'm going to focus on 6 or maybe 3, right, over time. And this is what I want you to do as well. But until you get data, until you start publishing about all these different types of content categories, you're never going to know. And that's why it's an experiment, and you need to do the experiment. So let's move on to building engagement, okay? Before we build engagement, and pardon me that the user interface here is a little bit old, but this is really evergreen. What your follower ratio says about your brand. And this is the exact same thing with Twitter, right? All these platforms where you can see followings because you have the ability to do so, it becomes part of your brand. And so on the left there, you have Disneyland. They don't need to follow more than 53 people to get 2 million followers. In the middle there, we have my favorite Japanese musician, Yaida Hitomi. Wonder if there's any Japanese people that are listening in. So, she has 20,000 followers, but she's following a few thousand. So, it's if I follow her, is she going to follow back? I don't know. Do I care? I really don't. But, there's a chance she may actually follow back. Now, on the right there, and I don't want to pick on Fernando, and this is a while ago. I'm sure Fernando has a lot more followers now. But at the beginning, a lot of people start following a lot of people. And what this says to me, right, if I get a follow from this type of an account, I'm going to go, wow, if this person is so good, if they have such awesome content, why are they following like twice more people than follow them? So if you're not getting a lot of followbacks or engagement, this could be one reason. It's just the visual impression that people get when they see that. So Instagram has a 7,500 restriction. I don't think you need to get anywhere close to that. But this is, sort of similar thing that I would have said on Twitter. You want to stick to a ratio and decrease over time. You don't want to follow more people until you get more followers. So until you have 100 followers, you don't want to be following more than twice the number of people. And you want that ratio to come down. 1,500 is considered to be sort of the borderline. And in fact, a lot of people say you don't want to follow more than 1,500 people because you really can't keep up with all their posts in your feed. So that's really a good target, I think, if you can max out at 1,500 and still build new followers, which I think you can. But this is something that you may want to fix if you haven't. So, building engagement comes through your content, right? It also comes through engagement. Posting and, people interested in your hashtag are going to find you. There's obviously a lot of applications that might follow you when you post a certain hashtag. They look at who you follow, who follows you, who liked your post, what have you. Following other people is another way of getting found. And think of Instagram like Twitter, right? Liking and commenting on other people's posts. The comment, there's, almost 7 or 8 likes per comment on Instagram. So guess what gets people's attention? Comments. You can cross-post your Instagram images to other social networks to build engagement there. You can create an Instagram widget for your website. Once you get a lot of user-generated content, you can include your Instagram URL on your website email signature. These are your, basic things that hopefully you're already doing. But this is how you get found and build your followers. And if I was to put it in a ratio, right? You post, you engage with others. Here's the golden rule of social media. The more you engage, the more engagement you get, right? So if you're not going to other people's profiles and engaging with their content, you're not going to build more followers and you're not going to build more engagement with your content, because once you engage with them, they see you, they come back to your profile and they follow you, your content now appears in the feed. And because they followed you recently, that might be a signal to Instagram to actually show your content, near the top as a new person they followed, right? Just a theory. We don't know how Instagram really works. Just a theory. Responding to direct messages, to commenting your profile, following others, and obviously following back. If you're not getting out of your bubble, there's a billion people out there. If you're just posting and waiting for things to happen, they don't, right? Everybody who's built up a robust community did so by engaging with other people that have similar interests or they thought would be really interested in their content. And be authentic when you do so, right? So the final one, I talked about content engagement. Let's talk about influencers. We are seeing the democratization of media influence. We are seeing YouTubers, Instagrammers that have as much influence over, my kids, like a Gen Z generation, than the traditional media does, right? So with that in mind, anybody can be an influencer. And, influencer marketing has become so important. This is a global consumer brand that was coming out with a new cosmetics line that I met at their APAC headquarters in Singapore. If we don't use influencer marketing to get the word out about our new cosmetic product, how else can we do it? So, who are influencers? Influencers could be your employees and partners. They could be your customers and fans. And then we have what we call influencers. These are all people that have influence. But guess what, right? The people that work for you or that are your partners or that are your customers and fans, they follow you, have the greatest brand affinity for you. They have a deep relationship with you. And if you look at the influencers in the bottom, they have the least brand relationship, the least brand affinity for you. And that's where you want to really think about before you reach out to people that don't know you, start with people that do know you and engage more with them and post their content and think about collaborating with them. Now, when we think of influencers, there's another way of thinking about it, which is, celebrity, macro, middle, micro, nano. You don't have to work with people that have a million followers to get engagement. You can work with people in the thousands, I'd say, even people that have 500 followers. Looking at the poll, a lot of you are under 500. Those are influential, right? They have more than you do. They can help your brand be seen by more people. Obviously, when you work with people that have smaller accounts, the nicheness and authenticity of the influencer and their community is also going to be greater. And there's a lot more, they're going to be cheaper to work with. If you're a personal brand, you reach out to other personal brands. Hey, can we do mutual shout outs? Can I invite you to my podcast? Will you post it on your profile? Let's do a photo shoot together. I mean, I don't know, right? But you're thinking about different ways of collaborating. I'm not just talking about money. So how you work with influencers. What is the easiest way? As I said, content curation and collaboration. If they're already talking about your product, right? You want to download and obviously repurpose their content, ask them for their permission. And if they don't, you actually want to gift them your product. This is the easiest way of working with influencers. A lot of influencers now, even micro influencers that have thousands between 10 and 50,000 followers. If the product is relevant, they might actually work for free. Just give them product and they will post it. So that's the number one thing that you want to do. Get people to try your product. Reach out to people. You can use influencer marketing platforms. You can wait for my book to find out more about that. Or you can just direct message people. Hey, we love your stuff. We'd love to collaborate. Can we send you some product? If we sent you product, would you be interested in posting it if you thought it was really cool? And if you post it, we're going to repost it and give you some love as well, right? It's a collaborative mindset. If you have an event, invite them to your event. If you have a restaurant, invite them to your restaurant, right? This is a no-brainer. Give people the ability, give influencers or people that you consider influential the ability to take pictures of you. But here's the thing, right? What's in it for me? You may reach out to 100 different micro-influencers and only one or two are going to say yes because it doesn't click with them. They don't need your product. It's not about their branding. They don't think their community would like it. They're in a bad mood. They need more money, right? This is what's going to decide if you're going to need to pay influencers to collaborate. But if you pay influencers to collaborate and you get access to photos, right, of really, really great content, it's sort of like that photo shoot, right? You pay $65, you get 100 photos. I'll give you $65 if you'll take 10 photos and post twice on Instagram. It's not a lot of money, right? Don't put your money in paid social. Invest in people. And that's really my message here, right? We've gone sort of full circle. And I know that it was a lot of content, and I'm really giving you a lot of different things to think about to get you in that Instagram mindset, because it really is different. And if you're not of that caliber, you want to collaborate with other people that are. So one thing I like to say now, social media should be about collaboration, not just marketing. Don't treat Instagram like every other network. Treat it as its own, and the need to have that sort of Instagrammable content should drive you towards collaborating with others, people you know, employees, photo shoots, influencers, gifting product. Those people and brands that do that are the ones that are going to be the most successful in Instagram going forward. All righty, I'm going to be following up with all of you anyway, but feel free to ask me any questions. I know we only have like 10 minutes left to answer whatever questions we have left, and I know that there's going to be a lot of them. So those are my contact details. Take a screenshot, but I'm Neal Schaffer everywhere, nealschaffer.com. My book comes out in March. And Anna, let us get back. Let me stop sharing my screen, obviously. And let's get back.
Thank you, Neal. Thank you for this presentation. It was super useful, super educating. Thank you very much. But before we get down to questions, would you mind to tell us about your experience of using Combin? So how long have you been using our app? How successful you are? Do you have something to say?
Yes. So this webinar is being sponsored by Combin, and Combin is a partner of mine, I'd like to call them. And the reason why I did not talk about tools, I talked very little bit about tools in Instagram, is because the things you need to do for success are not about the tools. They're about the content, they're about the engagement, they're about the people, right? And the collaboration. But obviously tools can be very helpful. Combin is actually a company that reached out to me. Anna, it might've been before your time at Combin. I'm going to say it was 2 or 3 years ago. They wanted me to do a product review of their platform on my blog, which at the time was Maximize Social Business. So if you go to my blog, nealschaffer.com, and do a search for Combin, you'll actually see a lot of screenshots about the tool. At the heart of the tool, what I was thinking, and what a lot of you were thinking, if you've been active in Twitter, as I have, you're looking for tools. It's like, hey, in Twitter, I can see who all my followers are. I can sort of, see who my biggest followers are. When I interacted with them, I can try to find, ghost followers and people that haven't posted in a while. Or I can do searches like on hashtags or people that have engaged with my competitors. Why can't I do that on Instagram? Why doesn't that tool exist? Okay. Well, the closest thing to that tool, and when I talk about Twitter, I'm talking about things like Tweepy and Manage Flitter, and a lot of these have actually ceased to exist. They've had a lot of restrictions been put on them by Twitter, but on Instagram, the closest thing that I've been able to find to that is Combin. So if I just want to see who are my followers, and from largest number of followers to smallest number, who are they? Combin will actually visually show me that and make it very, very easy for me to be able to filter out, okay, if this week I want to engage with people that are already following me that have over 10,000 followers, who are they, right? And Combin will actually, because it is tapping into your Instagram profile, will actually tell you when was the last time you interacted with that person, right? So this also says, hey, I haven't interacted with this person in 6 months. I go to their profile. Wow, they haven't posted on Instagram in a year. Okay. One of the reasons why you may not get good engagement is if you've had a profile for many years like me, some people have completely tuned out to Instagram. You want to unfollow those people, right? And I have a podcast about this that I'll send you the link. I'll put the link when I get in touch with everybody. But here's the thing: ghost followers and people that are not active on the platform actually hurt you, right? Because Instagram is going to send the content out to them as well, and you're not going to get engagement. So one of the other, tactics of generating more engagement is to have a very, very robust community of people that are really, really active. Using Combin, and there's different ways of using it, right? But in terms of giving you visibility into, who's out there, the similar thing like one of those Twitter tools, Combin is really the only tool that I've found. Now, Combin also includes automation features. There are people who think you shouldn't do any automation on Instagram. You can have Combin and you don't need to do automation. If you want to do experiment with automation, you can do that through Combin as well with what you find. But what I like about Combin is there's a lot of really, really shady services out there. What Combin gives you is the control. If you're like, okay, I just want to follow 10 people today, you're able to do that. So you can do as little or as much. If you feel really comfortable, you can do a lot. If you don't feel comfortable, you do a little. So Combin is just at the heart of it, like I said, whether or not you do any of the automations, which a lot of people have a lot of debate on, it is going to help you make your engagements better because you're going to be able to find people a lot easier and faster and be able to better understand your own community. So I'm sure that Combin's going to be following up with you as well. I think they have a free trial. You should definitely follow up. Like I said, I've been with them on, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years now. Anna and the people there, if you have questions about Instagram, about the tool, they're really, really helpful as well. So that's it, Anna. Hopefully that gives you an idea of how I use the tool.
Thank you for such kind words. Really appreciate that. Thank you. So now let's get down to Q&A. I'm going to ask you the most upvoted questions. So the first one. So what is the best way to convert followers into buyers when you are below the 10,000 followers mark?
Yeah, you need to get to that 10,000 followers as soon as possible. But really what's going to convert them is the content, right? So they're going to check out your grid. If you engage with others and you want them to follow you back, right? Or if you want your followers, you need to have pictures of your product in realistic, inspiring situations ideally of other people using it so that they're doing the advertising for you. So I would say it comes down to the content. It comes down to leveraging user-generated content. It comes down to encouraging people out as they get your product, or if they are your customers, to post it. What I found was really interesting is, look, marketing is not just about Instagram, right? So one of my customers is a company that deals in the beauty industry, and they get lots of engagement on Instagram, right? And they leverage user-generated content and they work with influencers. But at the end of the day, they want to bring people into their store. Once they get people into their store, usually they do this through campaign. There's buy one, get one free. There's 10% off. You want to do these not all the time, but limited time periods. But they really want to get people on their email list. And what they found is that the highest ROI they get is not when they do an Instagram ad or Instagram organic. It actually comes from that email list. So you got to think really holistically about this, right? There's different ways of getting people from your Instagram feed to buy from you. But at the end of the day, you got to get them back on your website into your shopping cart, and you need to incentivize them to do that. So do an Instagram story with a poll, right? I did a poll the other day. Hey, do you want me to post more social media content? Should I add another content bucket for my blog posts and podcast? And like 97% of my followers said yes. And the 1 or 2% that said no, one of them said, sorry, I chose wrong. I meant to say yes. So ask your followers, right? I think Instagram stories gives you the ability to engage. And if you don't have the engagement, it's going to take time, right? But hopefully following all the advice I gave you here, you're going to get the engagement so that when you do a story, you're going to get more people to respond. But like I said, it comes down, I believe, with you need to have the content that showcases your product, that showcases other people that you can tag that are using your product, and then an incentive to get them to come into your website, sign up to your email list, right? And really the easiest way to do that is to give it out, right? And here's the thing, when I talk holistically, what is the customer lifetime value, CLV? So a lot of people are like, I don't want to pay $15 per conversion on Instagram, but what if over the course of time, an average customer buys $100 worth of product? That's incredible ROI. That's the way you need to think. if you have a product that, you give away, but you have other products that you're developing, or maybe they need to reuse that product every year, seed it strategically, not just anybody, right? You want to make sure that their branding is aligned. You want to make sure that they have, engagement on their profile, but seed it strategically on a regular basis. And that is one way of, obviously you get them on your email list, you tell them to use this promo code, you get them in your shopping cart, you get them on your website. So at some point you need to incentivize, because every other company is trying to do what you do, and not everybody can buy from everywhere. You need to be a little bit special. And that would be my advice in that situation.
Oh, thank you, Neal. I also like your advice about using stories, these question stickers, polls. I think it's a great opportunity to engage, to communicate, to connect with people.
And once again, Instagram looks at that engagement, right? It becomes part of the algorithm. It's going to help you get more engagement when you do that.
Yeah. One more very interesting question, and I'm also interested to hear your answer. So please give us your definition of engagement. Do you consider likes as engagement?
Engagement is anything that posts a notification in your notification tab, right? So a like is an engagement, a comment is an engagement, a tagging, a repost. These are all, if someone views your story, that is a view. These are all different types of engagement, right? The views don't necessarily post a notification, but they actually saw your logo in a story and clicked on it. Now, the value of these engagements are all differently. So, I can tell you from experience, I get a few hundred likes per post. I have to skip through my notifications to get through all the likes, or so many, but the comments stick out, right? And it's the comments of the people that I want to know who they are, and I want to go to their profile and I want to engage with them. And that's why, likes are important to get on people's radar. And I think the fewer followers that people have, the more that likes are actually engagement that people notice. But over time, I think comments and even, Instagram story views, it's a 24-hour thing. I don't know how many people are going through all the people that view their story. Do they follow them? What have you? But definitely the comments are things that stick. And that would be, I believe, the number one opportunity. But likes are important as well. Not as important when people have more and more followers.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for your answer. One more question is about Instagram and Facebook. I think you have already answered that during your presentation, but still. So do you think, is it the best practice to always post to Instagram and share the same content to Facebook?
Well, Facebook is different. So if you're doing that, you'll want to make sure that your hashtags are in a comment, not on the photo, because Facebook really, hashtags never became mainstream there. I see a lot of companies that are very successful doing that, but I would also let you know that I would recommend you take the extra step of actually natively uploading it in the Facebook app rather than doing a repost, rather than sharing it from the Instagram app to Facebook. There's no data behind this, but I would think that if you post it natively from an algorithm perspective, and also because obviously Instagram is square or close to square, Facebook is very, very different. And you have the ability to put sort of emotional reactions when you post as well. So I would recommend when you can use the same creative, but I would recommend that you natively upload it to Facebook and make sure you use some of the functionality that is unique to Facebook when you post there. And if you're only going to do this once a day, it should not require a lot of time in order to do so.
Okay, and by the way, a question from me. So do you think that the content should be different on any social media network? So Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, everywhere, different content?
In an ideal world, yes. So I have just embarked on a strategy where I am using images on Pinterest that are unique to Pinterest. And what I've seen, and this is the same as YouTube, right? YouTube cover images are going to decide whether people click through on your video or not. That is a type of content that should be unique to YouTube. Just as a pin in a 2-3 format, right, is something that should be unique to Pinterest in a language, in a visual language that people are used to seeing. Twitter's very different, LinkedIn's different, Facebook's different, Instagram's different. Facebook is pretty close to Instagram in many instances when we talk about the visual, but the other networks obviously are very different. So in an ideal world, yes, you can use the same, visual, just have a different caption. But when size matters on different networks, that's where you really want to have a different size image for those networks. Just make sure if you want to use the same content that you're resizing it for those networks. So, every social network is a different community. It's different graphics. They engage with content differently. And just like there are some people that are just on Instagram all the time that create great content that you compete with, there are some people that are just on LinkedIn all the time that create great content that you compete with, or that are just on Twitter all the time that create, so that at the end of the day, you have to compete with those people that just focus on one network. And that's why in an ideal world, yes, you would actually have at least a different caption, if not slightly different visual content for each network.
Yeah, absolutely agree, by the way. The next question is about being polite on Instagram. So the question is, do we always need to ask permission, or can we use repost, include name and captions, and tag on photo without asking permission? Because asking permission it slows down the process. So what do you think about that?
Well, when you post someone else's photo on your profile, there's copyright issues, right? And there's legal issues. So if you're a business, I would actually take an extra step. It can be as simple as commenting and waiting for a response. And I'd say, part of the reason why you want to repost is not just for the content for your own platform, but it's also for the engagement of building the relationship, right? And that's the other thing that people forget. Yes, it's a hassle, but all you're saying is in a comment, just asking them, hey, is it cool if I repost this to my profile? And it's going to build engagement. And if they don't engage back with you, then you may be dealing with a bot, right? That's just posting photos, and a real person's not monitoring. So I think for a lot of reasons, I would do that. And therefore, it's not like a retweet, because it is a visual that you do not own. So I would take the extra step. If you're a personal blogger and you're not a business and you want to do that, I would be a little bit more lenient. And you obviously ideally want to tag them. You absolutely want to tag them and maybe, reach out to them. Hey, I just tagged your post. Hope it was cool. If not, I'll delete it. And you could take that same approach as a business, but I would at least reach out to them once. And if you're going to take that approach, let them know that you tag them. And also, if you didn't ask beforehand, which you should, hey, if you have a problem with it, let me know and I'll take it down. But, I'd say, hey, hopefully it promotes your profile and you get some new followers from it as well.
Yeah, okay. The next question is from Sarah. A very interesting question again. So Sarah has two accounts. One is 1,500 followers and the other is 500 followers. So for the first one, she's posting once a day and it's working great. But for the second one, she's posting less, like 3 times a week because of lack of time. And she realized that her engagement rate has increased. More likes, more comments. So the question is it more a question of how you interact with your community and not really on how often?
It's a combination of things, but the other thing that's working there, and there's data that shows that the smaller number of followers you have, on average, the higher your engagement. And even LinkedIn recently announced this, that they're exposing they're trying to expose more people's content. And I think Instagram does this as well. If you're new and you don't have that many followers, they want to make Instagram look attractive and they're going to show your content to more people, right? So part of it definitely is that. Part of it is every follower base is different, right? And the content is different. Now, in the old days, I would have agreed that, hey, don't post content unless, you have enough content to post. Perhaps if you only do it once a week or twice a week, if you're attracting a lot of people to your profile, then that one photo they see from a few days ago, that same photo is going to build up more and more engagement. But I think if you look at the aggregate engagement, right, of doing it twice a week versus 7 days a week, even if the twice a week got more engagement, if you add together the engagement of these 2 posts versus the 7 posts and the ability of each of those 7 posts to have more hashtags, so 210 hashtags compared to 60 hashtags, I think that you're still going to be, it's beneficial. But look, I don't work at Instagram, right? And I'm basing this based on the own data that I've seen, that I've learned from, other experts in the space. It's going to come down to your own profile. And if you find that works best for you, by all means, keep doing it, right? And the algorithm is always in flux, so nobody knows for sure. But I do see this daily posting, the benefits far seem to outweigh the potential disadvantages, which is people don't see the same photo all the time. It's sort of distributed amongst other posts. So it all comes down to a data experiment. It's that PDCA circle that I showed you. So if that's working for you, the smaller account, keep doing it. But guess what? When you get to 1,500 followers, I guarantee you that the amount of impressions is probably, as a percent of your fans, is probably going to go down over time. When you get to 5,000, 10,000, it continually goes down. And that's what all the data suggests. And it actually says that the people, I think, between 700 and 1,200 get the most engagement for that reason. So just some things to think about. It's all gray. There's no black and white here. But that would be my recommendation to you.
Okay. And what about your personal experience? So how often do you post on Twitter, for example, or on LinkedIn?
Yeah, for Instagram, I used to have this process where I posted until I got a number of likes as a percentage of my followers. So let's say I had 10,000 followers. I want to have a 1.5% engagement rate or a 2% engagement rate. So I'm not going to post my next photo until I get 150 likes or 200 likes. And this is a strategy that you could do as well if you only want to post a few times a week. Don't post the next one until you get a certain percentage of likes per fans on that photo. Okay? That would be my advice there. That's what I used to do, because I saw 2 days after, 3 days after, 4 days after, I was still getting engagement for that content. But recently, I think we're seeing a lot more people post a lot more content on Instagram now. So recently I've noticed the algorithm's working a little bit differently. I get a lot of likes within 24 hours, and then I get very few likes after that. It could be because I have a lot of followers. I'm sitting like 17,000, a few hundred. But because I'm realizing if I want to keep that engagement going, it's not going to happen on its own. I need to post daily. And that's why I'm trying to do that on Instagram. I'm not there yet. It's a challenge for all of us, me included. But that's what I'm trying to do. On Twitter, I post maybe 50 to 100 times a day. On Pinterest, I post like 50 to 100 times a day. On LinkedIn, I try to limit it to 1 or 2 a day. And on Facebook, I try to limit it to 1 or 2 a day as well. So, that's the different types of frequencies you're dealing with. Twitter and Pinterest, tweet and pin all you want. LinkedIn, Facebook, the algorithm is a little bit more severe. Try to get 1 or 2 quality posts would be my recommendation. And Instagram is going to be the least frequent. YouTube is actually the least frequent, maybe once a month. But if you can do once a week, awesome. Blogging, once a week, awesome. Podcasting, once a week, awesome. Instagram, I would have said once a week before, but now I'm thinking once a day because you're competing with all the other people that are publishing more frequently.
Okay, thank you for your advice, Neal. So Carolyn says you talk a lot about products. So what about creating user-generated content for services?
Yes, well, product services, to me, it is something that you sell, right, from your company. So the service could be challenging because how do you visually represent it? But it's the same thing. Just like you're not going to have a product photo, it's going to be more a lifestyle, it's going to be a person in a situation. You need to have that with your service as well. Maersk, that example, they do have containers, but they're a freight service, they're a shipping service. So it really is the same type of thing. I'd need to know, more in general, the exact type of service, in all honesty, but it could be people that experience your service. What do they look like? What does it feel like? Who are the people that are experiencing your service? These are the things that you need to ask to try to find the right content. Do you have competitors in your industry that are already doing this? Is another really, really easy thing to do. But I find that most brands are not that good at Instagram for a variety of reasons. So you may not be able to find the role model. But, today I've really tried to focus on the general, within an hour time and on. I think I have time for maybe, we're already 12 minutes over and I want to be respectful of people's time. Maybe one more question. The application of all this is really the art because there's so many different ways you can take it, right? But you really need to think hard of what that service looks like visually, right? Are there landmark things that you can utilize as part of a visual for that service? That is the most challenging, one of the most challenging aspects of Instagram. I'm not able to answer 100% of everyone's questions, but hopefully that gives you a lot of food for thought to help you find the right imagery, which then you're going to be posting and looking at the data and trying to figure out what is most engaging with people and keep going with that type of content.
Yeah, thank you, Neal. One last question for you. So is this information applicable globally, like including Asia Pacific too?
Yeah, Instagram really is global at this point. There are certain networks like Pinterest and Snapchat that are not global. They really never made it outside of the United States or North America. But Instagram, I mean, for the fact that it's owned by Facebook, is global. I mean, the only country where you're going to be challenged with Instagram is China, because they block a lot of sites and they have their own internal social networking sites. But really, and they have, Weibo and WeChat, what have you. But outside of that, I have seen Instagram become really popular everywhere. And I see influencer marketing with Instagram, whether it's Europe, whether it's Asia, whether it's the US. I'm seeing a lot of people out of like Nigeria and African countries. When I was in Bahrain in the Middle East, it was all about Instagram. So at this point, I really do think it is global. And, with the exception of China, you're going to get a lot of engagement no matter what country you're targeting on Instagram.
Okay, Neal. So thank you for these answers. Thank you for this presentation. It was super cool, super engaging, super useful. I hope all of our attendees are glad that they came here, and because they got just a ton of useful information. So thank you, Neal. Thank you guys for coming here. Let's say big thanks to Neal Schaffer.
And hey, just a final reminder, I'm going to be following up with you all. So if you have additional questions, you'll have the opportunity to ask them, right? And for the person who asked about services, give me some more detail when you ask me the question. I'll try to give you a better answer. But, I hope this is the beginning of a great relationship with you. I hope you'll check out Combin as well, because it's a really great tool. And I know it's helped me. And Anna, thank you so much. And I wish you all a great day.
Oh, thank you very much. I wish you a great too. Goodbye.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.